Welcome to the Mitchell Center for Sustainability Solutions and our Sustainability Talk series. My name is David Hart. I'm the director here, which turns out to be a pretty fun job. Great to have you here with us. So now, finally, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Katie Timms. Katie has so many connections to the university and to Maine that I'm going to have to shorten this a lot, but I will say that she was the salutarian at her high school. She did her undergraduate degree here, where, among other wonderful things, she was a member of a Mitchell Center research team focused on reducing wasted food. That team, that work was really in the early stages working with Suzanne Lee, who is just out of this world, as anybody who's had the pleasure of working with her knows. That early work has continued right up to the present, and it's exactly why Governor Mills just issued a proclamation celebrating Maine Wasted Food Awareness Week with deep connections to all the work that's been going on under Suzanne Lee's direction at the Mitchell Center. Katie also did research with Cooperative Extension, a lot of which focused on the Orono Community Garden Project. She and her colleagues even published a peer-reviewed paper, a lot of honors college partners or co-authors, peer-reviewed paper based on that work, so well done. After graduation, she worked as a sustainability intern with the Maine Department of Environmental Protection, also focused on these kinds of issues, waste reduction, recycling initiatives. She was also an associate with the Honors College, where she advised students, co-taught classes, and much more. And for 3+ years, she has been a sustainability associate with Portland Sustainability Office, and that's what we get to find out more about today. I'm especially grateful to Katie for her many key roles that she played in a wonderful celebration of Senator Mitchell and the Mitchell Center that took place in Freeport almost to the day this time last year. So please join me in welcoming Katie back to the Mitchell Center.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, David, and thank you to the Mitchell Center for inviting me to speak today. I'm truly just grateful. I believe that the work that I was involved in with the Food Rescue Maine team propelled me into the work I'm doing now, which is exactly where I want to be, solving real-life problems through collaboration and convening. And I feel lucky to share today about the work we're doing in Portland, and it is truly a privilege to share this at a moment where local government feels more important than ever. And so my task today is to talk about climate action in Portland, and I wanted to start off with how our climate action plan came together. While the city of Portland has been committed to waste reduction for decades and done emission inventories before, there was a turning point in 2019 when young people and adults protested on the steps of City Hall to voice their concerns around the national failure to act on climate and to strike for sweeping policies. Youth leaders with the organizing group then put forth a resolution to Portland City Council declaring a climate emergency. Our council voted swiftly to adopt the resolution. Our council also established targets to reach carbon emission goals community-wide and for city operations. This community-wide momentum in 2019 really propelled the ongoing conversation around the city's strategy for climate action. And this brings us to 2020, when the city of Portland adopted One Climate Future, our climate action and adaptation plan. It set milestones for Portland to reduce carbon emissions and build a more resilient community. We often refer to One Climate Future as a people-based plan because it was not only called for by the people and written with their feedback after over 100 engagement opportunities, but it also relies on the many to achieve its goals. Our climate action plan addresses integrated challenges and strategies to create systems-level change, and it involves cooperation across sectors, city departments, and communities to collectively develop these solutions. You'll see some examples in a moment. One Climate Future is more than just a document on a shelf. It's not a city hall plan, it's a city-wide plan. And One Climate Future is our city's roadmap to a more sustainable and resilient future, and something that city staff and passionate community members now point to often. I also want to mention that One Climate Future is a partnership. Portland and South Portland have committed to tackling climate change together across our shared harbor. It's a unique opportunity for cities to share a climate action plan, and I truly don't know any other two cities that share one. But I think it benefits both of us and reminds us that climate change knows no boundaries. One Climate Future outlines 68 strategies across these 4 topics: buildings and energy, waste reduction, transportation and land use, and climate resilience. These 68 strategies detail how Portland and South Portland will address climate change and how we will create thriving, inclusive, fossil fuel-free cities for over the next 30 years. Now, the plan is 300 pages long, so we're not going to go through it step by step, but I'll show you just 3 different projects that we have successfully been working on how we're achieving all these goals. So I'm just going to hop right in and remind us of all of the historic January 2024 storms that caused damage and destruction across Maine communities. These here are only 2 pictures of the intense flooding we experienced in Portland. And in my lifetime, this historic level of flooding will become a monthly occurrence. I honestly find it hard to wrap my brain around that. But with this in mind, how are we preparing Portland for sea level rise? One of One Climate Future strategies suggests an approach to resilience zoning to prepare the city for the impacts of sea level rise, more storms and increased rain, and hotter temperatures. The Portland Planning Department has been working hard over the past 5 years to holistically integrate these threats into our land use code. And for those of you who aren't a municipal nerd like myself, a city or town's land use code is a collection of local laws and ordinances that dictate how land can be used or developed in different zones. And just last year, we passed some new changes to become more climate resilient. First, we created new zoning in flood-prone areas, which require certain types of buildings like housing, schools, and hospitals to be elevated 14 feet above ground level. We require new development to meet the highest energy code in the state, meaning that all new buildings are super efficient and use less energy to heat or cool. We now allow for multifamily homes in every residential zone and raised the maximum heights of buildings in downtown and on some of our major roads. We got rid of parking minimums and adopted parking maximums. We also created specific areas in the city which focus development and revitalization efforts around public transit networks. This also aims to build more walkable neighborhoods that are interconnected by trails and public transportation. We also increased requirements for how new development manages stormwater and prioritized on-site solutions like rain gardens to help manage that stormwater. We also increased requirements for cool roofs, like you see there, and landscaping for shade. The city's land use code impacts how Portland grows for the next 10 to 25 years and aims to solve some of our biggest sustainability problems we have: lack of housing, future threat of flooding and storms, low ridership of public transit, disconnected neighborhoods, and more. And while passing a new land use code may not be the most exciting thing in the world, these are the rules we need to think about when we're shaping our future. These updates will dictate how we can spread the challenges of sustainable growth fairly across communities, how we can improve livability and create complete neighborhoods while keeping a neighborhood's character, and it ensures that we do not let housing or schools be built in flood-prone areas. Even for Portland, this is some pretty progressive change. Not everybody likes more housing in their neighborhood. So how did we make this happen? This took immense collaboration between city staff and listening to the needs of our communities and businesses. People are concerned about sea level rise and housing and heat, and concerned about how Portland will grow. Climates are changing and Portland has to change with it. But hopping to the next item, my office implements a program called the Electrify Everything program, which aims to provide incentives or discounts on items to make it easier for people to weatherize and electrify their homes or buildings. As many of you know, there are state incentives to do these types of projects offered by Efficiency Maine. And while these rebates are crucial for helping Mainers make their homes more energy efficient, we heard from many Portlanders that it often was not enough of an incentive for them to be able to afford the upfront cost. So Electrify Everything is meant to help bridge the gap between the upfront cost and the incentives that Efficiency Maine and the federal tax credit can offer. Electrify Everything is also meant to spread awareness of these incentives that still exist and spread awareness about the short-term and long-term benefits of weatherization and efficiency upgrades. And we've run a couple iterations of the program. In our first, we partnered with Revision Energy to offer discounts on installations for solar panels, heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, EV chargers, and home weatherization. This was truly an amazing program because we did it with zero funding. We sought to find a business that was interested in partnering with the city where we could offer kind of a one-stop shop where interested residents could learn more and find a qualified installer. After this program period was over, Revision Energy had completed 105 projects in Portland households, including several whole home electrification projects. Moving on though, in our second iteration of the program, which we fondly refer to as Electrify Bikes, we offered incentives for e-bikes and e-cargo bikes to income-eligible Portland residents. This operated almost as like a voucher program where applicants came into our office and received a certificate where they could go to one of the local bike shops who were participating in the program and receive a 60% discount of up to $1,500 off their e-bike and safety accessories. This program turned out to be a fantastic collaboration with the local bike shops who were receiving new customers all summer long, and we were able to provide 68 households with new, reliable, fossil fuel-free transportation. Almost everyone who received a bike gave us feedback that their household was able to go without buying a second car, or that they were able to take their kids to school in the morning every day with their e-bike. And this was truly just a resounding success. I know we want to do this program again if we can find the funding. But for our third iteration of the program, we offered up to $250 in rebates for weatherization projects or products and small electric appliances. We're really trying to target renters here and people who might not be able to make those, like install a heat pump or do other projects like that. This program offered people the opportunity to transition to electric cooking appliances like induction cooktops or rice cookers, which can not only help you avoid using fossil fuels, but it also can significantly improve your indoor air quality, which is a huge health impact that I think a lot of people don't think about. Other people who came in to get rebates were excited about the potential for a warmer, more comfortable home and energy savings with a new window dresser insert or door sweeps. When we launched this program, my office was super excited. We sent mailers to every home and apartment in the city. We spent a ton of time doing outreach and education, which is pretty typical for us, but we were just so excited about this program. And when we launched it, it was crickets for a few months. But through word of mouth, this program really eventually took off after, I would say, like 5-6 months. And as news spread, we ended the program in December 2024, and I had about like 20 or 30 people coming in every day. And it was December, and so I felt like Santa Claus. I was like giving people like free window caulking and free induction cooktops, but so it was honestly really fun. So altogether, the Electrify Everything program has been a great success, and we learned that there's certainly a community need to help people make these types of transitions. The future challenge that we will have is funding, for sure. Switching gears to talk about another effort our office is undertaking, which is building community resilience. 2 years ago, we launched the Sustainable Neighborhoods program with the question, how do you get people to know their neighbors again? Not only is this an idea actually a strategy in One Climate Future, but it feels like a really relevant question that we should be asking in today's world. We also know that there are many studies that show that communities that are more socially connected are better prepared to face emergencies and extreme weather events. A resilient neighborhood is a neighborhood where people check in on each other and have someone to call or share resources with and offer help during a crisis. We launched the Sustainable Neighborhoods program to try to support opportunities for neighbors to collaborate on projects together, volunteer, and to simply know the people right in their neighborhoods. So right now we offer support for community cleanups, offering all of the equipment, PPE, and bags, and we will coordinate trash pickup at the end. We also offer block party kits full of games and chalk and bubbles, and we'll waive a permit fee to help shut down the street safely. And most recently, we ran a mini grants program that offered $500 to groups of neighbors to lead community-led projects that fostered collaboration and strengthened social connections among neighbors. We recently just heard a story from people who hosted their neighborhood block party and were able to organize amongst a few of the families a bike bus. So students and a few of the parents like planned out a route and they take their kids to school every day on a bike, which is super cool. Another good story from our mini grants program that we just launched and wrapped up, but a group of neighbors, we were able to help them hold a community plate dinner, which brought together over 150 tenants of these 3 new mixed income apartment complexes. And it provided an opportunity for all of these new neighbors to get to know each other in their shared courtyard and share a meal. And there was facilitated story sharing. And yeah, we were like, this is exactly what we want to see. But yeah, this program has been really, really fun. We've also helped put on, under the umbrella of this program, an effort to transition all of our city community gardens from in-ground beds to ADA accessible raised bed gardens. So in collaboration with Cultivating Community, who is a nonprofit group that helps us manage the community garden program, and they do so much more. But we put on these raised bed building workshops where we taught people how to build raised beds and work together to transform whole gardens. This program has brought together new residents, AmeriCorps fellows, youth gardeners, school teachers, neighbors of the garden, and citizens looking to make an impact in their community. And through hours of shared labor and hands-on learning and close personal contact, I was at all of these, so I do know. The project teams built new social connections and raised bed gardens that will be used for years. Participants leave with instructions on how to build a raised bed, which is practical knowledge they can share, but they also leave with the history of the garden, increased awareness of city programs, confidence in their handiness abilities, and a sense of belonging and impact within their community. And while a challenge to organize, I myself had never ordered lumber. I had never even heard of geotechnical landscaping fabric. This was one of the most rewarding experiences I've had yet in my time with the Sustainability Office. And these 3 examples are just a snapshot of our commitment to advancing the goals of One Climate Future. My office is constantly doing other things, implementing other programs, enforcing ordinances, organizing community events, writing grants, and just so much more. And while I only showed you 3 success stories, I do want to point out some of the challenges of doing this work. Because we are engaging with people all day long, and sometimes it's a challenge, but it is really fun. I want to start off by saying that people often have the misconception that their local government or state isn't moving fast enough. And I'm here to tell you that no matter how hard we try, we are not making transformations overnight. Addressing climate change and building sustainable communities takes time, and that's okay, because we give this process, this time gives us the space to help bring everyone into a more sustainable future. Sustainability is environmental justice work and social justice work and planning for the future we all want to live in. It took 2 years to develop One Climate Future because of the importance of community engagement. Secondly, we don't have the funding or the capacity to do it alone. We need to get everyone to pick up a shovel and channel all of the energy that we have into building this more sustainable future. We all know that large-scale actions are necessary to adapt to a changing climate, so it's easy to point the finger, but most of the time, the most impactful solutions are found at the local level. And I do really just want to shout out to my team, our City of Portland Sustainability Director, Troy Moon, my colleague, Carly Meyer, and our Resilience Corps Fellow, Brenda Curlin. I can't say enough amazing things about my team. We all work really hard and collaborate with all the other departments and organizations. So I did just want to give them a shout out. And that's it for me. I do want to do a shameless plug for our Instagram and sign up for our One Climate Future newsletter. It's only once a month, but I'll leave it at that.
So plenty of time for discussion, questions, anything. Anybody want to start? Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your funding structure, different sources you get that from?
Yeah. So we write grants for almost every project we implement. So it is spent a lot of time seeking grants, writing them, helping you get them. And even when you do, it's time spent implementing them. But we are often chasing state grants. The Community Resilience Partnership, thank you, is a state agency that helps a lot of communities take action. Most recently, let's see, it funded part of the Sustainable Neighborhoods Program. It's funded other outreach activities with Electrify Everything. We also chase the Maine DEP has waste reduction grants, which we go after to help improve our composting program. Portland's interesting. It's not a very big city. And so a lot of the time when the federal government used to put out grants that were like $4 or $5 million, that's really hard to manage, hard to plan for. But with the lack of federal funding, I think a lot of federal funding trickles down to the state, and those are the ones we were going after. So I think it's gonna certainly be a challenge to not be investing in climate. But yeah, we'll see.
From the chat. This question basically asks, so there are certain goals that are not going to be achieved, like from that plan 2030 that you mentioned. But I also, right, you started with that, I think, the very sort of exciting intro about the youth action that sort of inspired all these changes. So let's say it's 2023. What does the city of Portland say to those people who sort of got all this started? What are some things that fell short? Why? And maybe what's next?
Yeah, I would say, I would think we had some pretty lofty goals for 2030. Our climate action plan calls for an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, compared to a certain baseline. And I think 2030 is staring us in the face. It's not that far away. And in order to achieve our goals, we're gonna need some significant emissions reductions in transportation and in buildings. I can say hopefully that we focusing on buildings is actually our biggest source of emissions in Portland, just because we have such an old housing stock, inefficient buildings that are still running on natural gas or propane. And so working with the building stock, we implement a program that's called an energy benchmarking ordinance, where we require all of our big buildings, so buildings over 20,000 square feet, to report their energy use. And we can spit back at them metrics that say you could do X, Y, and Z and improve your building's energy use and save money by doing so. So I think that's something we're really gonna have to hammer down on. I'm confident that new development our energy stretch code requires new development to be super efficient. But yeah, I think the cost of energy use too is going to be a game changer in how people are making decisions in the future. At the end of the day, it is a lot about the cost and the things you have to manage on day to day. We could point to when I was talking about the efforts in our new land use code. I think a lot of those strategies are going to help improve our transportation related emissions. We're improving bike accessibility. We no longer have parking maximums. We are creating transit oriented districts to help improve public transit access. So I think there's strides to be made, and I don't think we're going to reach those 2030 goals that we might have. And that's a hard conversation to have. I think back to funding and capacity too. I think we need to be investing. Talk to your counselors. invest in what you want. So yeah, I think hopefully by 2050 we're there. Yeah, this is a long range climate action plan. It's not a transformation overnight.
For a lot of the projects that you're talking about, it seems like you guys rely really heavily on community involvement and community outreach. So I was curious if you could share, like, how do you get the word out in a city like Portland about like a 60% reduction in the cost of an e-bike? I feel like more than 80 people would be interested in that.
Yeah, some of us were, like, we could only have funded like 80 bikes, but for the other one, the one we called it DIY Electrify, where you could buy like home weatherization or small electric appliances. Community engagement is so important, and it's something I really came to the city thinking that we could do a better job on. Not only do we definitely use social media, but we flyer. We've gone like so old school. We flyer around town. I talk to a lot of different organizations or other departments, like our public health team, who is constantly also interacting with people all day. And I'm like, hey, can you help spread the word about this awesome program? It can help people. And so I think leaning on the people around you, collaborating with them, and just also being accessible. We table a lot on the weekends. We try to create events. We try to go to events. It's certainly hard, and we're not reaching everybody. But like with our Electrify program, we did send a mailer to every house. Now, granted, when you get your mail, do you sometimes just throw it right into the trash? Yeah, but we're recycling. But we're always really thinking strategically about how do we reach a broader audience, and especially historically underrepresented populations. We have an Office of Economic Opportunity at the city, and we work with them a lot to, when we're brainstorming our programs, when we're trying to strategize outreach. You cross your fingers and hope it gets picked up by WCHS 6. I don't know. We're constantly trying to find different ways to get the word out.
One observation and one question. I thought it was really, really terrific how you talked about community formation as a critical feature in sustainable and climate resilience and things like that. And just a sidebar, I was in South Mississippi in Hurricane Katrina, and what that did to the way that neighbors came together to support other neighbors was so important. So it's great to see you guys working on that. Sure. My question has to do with keeping the faith at a time when that may be challenging. And obviously local government is different than federal government. It's different than state and it's different than federal government, but it feels, even for somebody not working in this kind of domain, I mean, it's pretty much feels like a relentless assault on things that you're valuing. So how do you in your office, working obviously tirelessly with a small team, scrabbling for funding, like how do you hold each other up? How do you recommend that other people hold themselves and each other up? Just help us all be emotionally strong, Katie.
That's a great question. I'll try to answer different parts of it. It is, thinking about community resilience is something my office does a lot. We're obviously focused on reducing emissions, but climate change is coming. We have to adapt to it, and getting people on board with that train of thought, like we have to adapt into this changing future, is definitely hard, and it's scary for me. But I think we have been seeing more and more extreme weather events. Even here in Maine, when the rivers flooded through Hollowell and Augusta, that was terrifying. So I think we often think about, like, your neighbors are often your first responder. So if you don't know them, or you're not there to check in on elderly neighbors, that's hard. I don't know. I grew up in a small town in Maine, and I helped shovel other people's driveways that couldn't do it themselves. So I think retreating back to that sense of helping take care of each other. And yeah, how are we doing it though? I think it's finding people who do have this energy right now. It is a strange climate and world we live in. And I think taking that energy, actually wanting to do something productive with it instead of being mean. And so I think finding those people that do want to build community and do want to do exciting projects, giving them the support and tools that they might need from their municipal government. That's what we've been trying to do. It is a weird time to work in local government or in any sector, actually. But yeah, forgive me if I'm just rambling here. I think feeling purposeful is important, and I think people should follow that direction. I'm just gonna keep rambling if I try to answer this question.
No, that's great. I mean,
Yeah,
leveraging a sense of purpose.
yeah,
Actually, if I could sort of build off this. So there are some pretty big differences that people have about their values and their worldviews and their preferences. But there is a kind of a theory of change that suggests that if you can get people working together on things that aren't so kind of ideologically loaded or that we might actually sort of rekindle an ability to kind of understand each other, kind of not in a high stakes way, and see how working together is actually a thing. Do you see that? Can you tell? For example, I mean, Portland must be a very diverse place, even ideologically. So are the usual suspects kind of coming together, or do you see kind of strange and wonderful partnerships of people who you might have said, I didn't think they'd work together, but then all of a sudden it happened?
I would say both. I think there are the usual suspects, the ones who are super active in their neighborhood association or condo association, and are ready and happy to do things. But I think there are people who don't know what to do, and when they do see things like a neighborhood cleanup, it's not a huge commitment. You can show up on a Saturday and help neighbors pick up trash, and then next thing you know, you're trading recipes and watching their kids. I think we're trying to hopefully be creative and allow people to come up with these ideas, because as the local government, we're not going to do it for you. And so I think it has to be community led, community inspired. And yeah, while not everybody is going to follow on this track, I think the more people get to know each other, better things will come out of it. That's what community is. Yeah.
And then try to bring together a couple questions from the chat here. So, and then you've touched on a lot of this already, but the person's asking about sort of how your work in your office can sort of produce behavioral changes in people. And one example people have brought up in the chat is public transportation and flip side car dependency. So I guess you mentioned some great examples in your talk, but would you go into a little more detail on your work and sort of changing people's behaviors as it relates to cars and public transit?
Yeah, this is a hard one. But it's very much a lot of what we do. It almost reminds me too of here in Portland, we have a pay as you throw program where people have to pay for their trash bags, and so you're kind of forcing them into a situation that we do want. Then it helps them reduce less waste. But back to transit, I think you do have to kind of have some rules and regulations, but also create engagement opportunities and educational awareness of the problem. So I think while we adopted parking maximums and are trying to make sure that we build development around public transit to make it easier to make those decisions, you do have to do the education and awareness and kind of lead people to that change. And I think a lot of sustainability too, unfortunately, is our problem is that we have built more convenient worlds that are full of plastic and just other like easy sustainable problems. But I think we are moving to a world that in order to be more sustainable, we do have to sometimes do the harder thing. But ideally, we're making it easier to make those choices. Yeah, or I think about our office a lot. We try and make it easy to pick the more sustainable options. Like we have a community composting program, so we have food scrap drop off sites all throughout the city. And so instead of trying to compost at home, you can bring it to one of these drop off sites. So I think, yeah, trying to make those options easier. I answered that person's question.
Sorry, I'm gonna look at my computer because I wrote down the question. So Maine is very dependent on tourism. We see like every year, like 4 million people come just for Acadia every summer and in the fall. So how does that affect your community building when the community is like constantly leaving or not even understanding the implications of climate change in the area?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say we're lucky enough where it's not a huge percent of our population, but there is certainly a difference in the summer. I think we could improve relationships and educational opportunities with the type of tourism industries. What comes to mind is cruise ships. We have cruise ships in Portland. And I think they I think they could do a better job of playing their part in their environmental impacts. And so I think, yeah, I guess I don't know how to answer your question, but I think maybe more educational opportunities, and maybe that even goes back to branding, like Portland recycles here, do your part. So I think, yeah, making it easier for those people to make those choices, but then also providing the educational content. It's a good question.
Here's a really weird twist on it, but 2 weeks ago when we had a talk here about PFAS in food and wildlife and water and all, social scientists on the team like Caroline Noblet were sort of showing, and I don't remember which part she said in that talk versus other things I've heard her discuss, but that there's a perception by some that Maine is being way more proactive about addressing this problem than other states. And Maine also has like a kind of a healthy environment kind of a vibe, which maybe you haven't gotten perfectly yet. But like how can you use, so some of Caroline's research is about messaging about that and understanding how people respond to it. So you can kind of imagine using something like that here. I don't even know how this works in Portland, but right, like one of the big things with, this isn't tourism exactly, but the giant cargo ships, I think Long Beach in Southern California is the biggest port in the nation. And for years, the diesel fumes from all of those cargo ships, which are literally stacked up way out into the Pacific, were causing huge air quality problems in frontline communities. And eventually, with a lot of litigation, they now have to plug in to renewable energy sources, electricity to power the ships. And so even kind of how you brand things, I don't know what either the concerns or the perceptions are about cruise ships in different parts of Maine, but it seems like it's an active point of discussion all over, right?
Certainly is.
Some communities have said flat no, right down in Cape or MPI.
Yeah. Yeah, not to continue too much on cruise ships. Yeah, I think being vocal too about the things you're seeing in your community and what you care about is always important. It can also be a huge source of economic balance too. when people visit, they spend money and they keep businesses alive. And I think people don't realize that they ride the wave of that economic support. I have no stance there though.
I'll try again to blend a couple of questions together. So, right, you've kind of talked about Portland writ large, but obviously Portland's very different, all sorts of different neighborhoods. It's a very diverse place. So sort of where, like, sort of getting more granular into Portland, where have you sort of been more successful hitting targets, and what parts of the city have been sort of harder to achieve goals?
That's another great question. I think while we work with a lot of the neighborhood associations, so we definitely try and have a presence diversely spread throughout the city. Even pointing back to our mini grant successes, we gave out 30 different mini grants, and it was scattered throughout the city, even including we actually also have 5 islands in Portland. And so I think that's another really interesting dynamic for us. And I think it's challenging and something that a lot of other cities are facing too, but we have a lot of refugees and a lot of new Mainers. And I think the language barrier is something that I think we could do a ton of work on. My office does translate things, but that doesn't mean it's getting into the right communities. And so we do a lot of work there. We try and make relationships with diverse groups that support different communities. Like the whole point is, building trust and building connections so that they can help you spread the word too, and we can help them spread the word. So I guess I can't think of like a neighborhood that we don't engage with as much as we should. But yeah, I think Portland's certainly interesting. We have such a vibrant downtown, but we have a neighborhood too that's bifurcated by a highway, 295. So I think, and then we've got off peninsula more like single family home style neighborhoods. So I think we're pretty diverse. And very different from the rest of Maine as a Mainer. So yeah, I don't know. I think we're always trying to strategize how to reach the people that we're not are not preaching at. Yeah.
So I'm gonna save, I've got a few more questions, but I'm gonna save for later. Anybody else?
One more in the chat that would be a fitting conclusion. So what are some programs that are sort of ongoing right now that you wish more people knew about?
We always have our community composting program. I would say check out, there are still federal tax credits that exist. Those are expired, many of them are expiring December 31st, the end of the year. Efficiency Maine has tons of state rebates, or state incentives, but things coming out of our office. In October, we have Pumpkin Cycle where you can compost your pumpkin, or you could smash it and we'll compost it for you. Which is actually was super important. We don't want all those pumpkins going to a landfill. I could talk your ear off about energy management for your home or business, but I would say stay tuned on our Instagram. I think we're in the middle of some brainstorming what's coming up next.
Well, let's thank Katie one more time.